This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. The following program has been rated G and is suitable for all audiences. With us today on The Havery Show, we have my very, very good friend and lifelong buddy and somebody that I've looked up to ever since he was born. Trent Ferguson is with us today. Trent, how are you?
Hey, it's good to be here, and I just want you to know that I look up to you. I've looked up to you for many years, and you've been a fantastic individual. You've inspired me to work hard and pursue what I want to pursue, and it's just an honor to be on this podcast, so thanks for having me.
The honor is all mine. Now, speaking of that, how old are you now, Trent?
I am 26.
So I've known it. I can't believe it. So that means I've known you basically for 26 years and 9 months because I literally knew you before you were even born.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's true because my grandparents, they brought me to Bible Fellowship Church back whenever I was at least 1 or 2. I think that's when they started taking me. So that's back in 1999, early 2000. And then, whenever I was 6, you got me taking drum lessons with Rodney. And
that's
then,
right.
and then you had me play in the band, with the worship team, and then so on and so forth. As the rest of they say is history.
That's absolutely true. Speaking of history, for 25 years old, you've got an unbelievably rich history. You've got tons of experience in a lot of different fields, and that's what we're going to talk about some today. So, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, what is Trent's favorite thing in life, I would have said music.
Right.
I think that sports has eclipsed music.
I don't know. It's tough because I love music. I love all kinds of music, particularly that of the 60s, 70s. They just don't make music like that today.
You're right.
I mean, today's music is good, and I respect the artist, and I respect the creativity, some of it. But, they don't make music like they made back in the 50s and 60s. But I will say that sports is a big part of my life as well. I've enjoyed football for many years. That's why I've worked in sports radio and still do. That's why I've done I love football, basketball, baseball. I love the art of sports, and I love the competition aspect of it. But since I'm a radio nerd, I've loved radio for my entire life. I love the broadcasting aspect of it too. So, I love it all, and that's what I've enjoyed the most.
I know this is going to be this is like somebody asking me what's my favorite Beatles song. But do you have a favorite sport? Does it go in and out of season? How does that work for you?
If I had a favorite sport, I would say football is my favorite. Just the way it's played. I've been a lifelong Buccaneer fan. More recent times, it's been fun to watch. Back whenever I first became a fan, whenever I was in 5th and 6th grade, not so much. It was rough. I remember riding, the Annette Trailway bus to the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind, listening to Buccaneer games during the football season, and I'm going, this is going to be another loss. This is going to be another loss. And I remember there was one day where I did not expect them to win. I think they were playing the Carolina Panthers. It was December of like 2012 or 2011, somewhere around there. I was in middle school. And next thing you know, Kellen Winslow makes a touchdown catch, and the Buccaneers win. And I don't erupt, but I was getting ready to. I had to remember where I was. I was like, oh, wait, I'm on a bus full of people. I can't erupt and be like, yes, the Buccaneers win. So, I would say football is my favorite sport. I love it's easy to follow. Even listening to it on the radio, it's very easy. Even listening to it on TV, if you have the right TV announcers, you can follow the game fairly well. And I give credit to TJ, my grandfather, for really getting me into football. I started watching it with him whenever I was a kid, and he took the time to explain, the defensive formations to me. He took the time to explain what the quarterback was and what roles he played during a game and all that kind of stuff, and so on and so forth. So I give credit to him for really explaining the sport to me, and then just giving me the passion, saying, I like this too. So I'm going to start watching it, and as they say, it's history because I'm hooked on it now.
Yeah, absolutely. The Bucks really kind of squeezed their way in this postseason, didn't they?
Yeah, they really
talk
did.
about keeping you hanging, but they're in. So, what are your thoughts about what are your thoughts about postseason NFL? Got any predictions?
I don't know. Kansas City's going to find some way to win. It just, don't get me wrong, I appreciate Patrick Mahomes. I really do. I like the Chiefs. but good gosh, they've won it for the last 5 seasons. They're like the New England Patriots of old. It seems like, Patrick Mahomes is a fantastic quarterback. He hasn't played clean football, but hey, somehow whenever it matters most, he'll make the play to win the game. But to me, look, the Bucs have the Commanders this week. Jaden Daniels is a rookie quarterback. The Buccaneers did beat Washington 37-20 week 1, but Washington's gone 12-4 since. So that scares me. Our secondary, we've got some injuries on defense, so Washington's got some weapons. Nonetheless, I'm saying it's a good game. I don't know how it's going to go, but hey, there's always hope. The Bucs got into the dance, so you never know what's going to happen.
That's right. There was a little bit of controversy over Mike Evans getting his 1,000 yards in the play that was called, and whether or not that was the right play for the team at the time. What are your thoughts on that whole thing?
Well, I thought it was interesting. With a minute to go in the game, the Bucs had just taken over on downs. The Saints went for it on 4th down. They didn't make it, so the Buccaneers got the ball. And I was concerned because it looked like Evans wasn't going to be able to get it. When Bucky Irving scored the touchdown for them to go up 27-19, because they were up by 1 before he ran it into the end zone, I was like, oh man, Mike Evans isn't going to get his 1,000 yards. And this is going to be rough, a tough thing. But the Bucs defense came through. They used their timeouts. They stopped them. They made sure they had just enough time on the clock for Evans to get the ball, and sure enough, he did. Baker Mayfield threw it to him. I think it was a good way. I wish he would have gotten it on the previous drive, so all they would have had to do is take a knee 3 times, and the game would have been over, but as long as Evans got the record, I think at that point in time they had the game won. They said, "Hey, look, we've got this. As long as we don't do anything crazy, we should be fine. Just give Mike Evans the ball one more time," and they did. And I'm so happy for him. I mean, to tie Jerry Rice out of all people.
Oh yeah,
wow!
What an accomplishment!
What an accomplishment indeed.
So, what do you think? What? First of all, let me ask you this: what did you think when the Bucs picked up Mayfield? And what do you think about it now compared to what maybe you thought to begin with?
Well, I was concerned about his attitude going in because Mayfield had a rough time in Cleveland, didn't get along with many people. And I can understand. I mean, the Browns haven't been that great of a team for a long time. Yeah. I mean, I remember a couple years ago, they finished the season over 500. They didn't make the playoffs, but they finished over 500. I'm like, wait a minute, that's a foreign concept. Cleveland finishing over 500? No way. But I was concerned at first. I was like, well, he's been around the league. He's been with Cleveland, Carolina, a couple of other teams, originally drafted out of Oklahoma. But then once he was able to sit behind Tom Brady during his last season and really watch him and watch how Brady handled his team, watch how Brady handled the micro moments, as they say, the specific game moments late in the 4th quarter, the 2-minute drive, the 2-minute offense. And he just got inspired by Brady, and the rest is, has happened, and here we are. So with Baker, I was concerned at first, but now I'm very happy that they picked him up because in reality, they picked up right where they left off with Brady to a certain extent. I mean, they made the playoffs. They haven't missed the playoffs since Brady has departed the team. So I give credit to Mayfield. I give credit to Todd Bowles. Dave Canales was the offensive coordinator back in 2023, but Liam Cohen has come in and done an outstanding job. He won't be here next year because Jacksonville's already looking at him. I don't see him being on the coaching staff for very long. And a lot of fans are really upset with Todd Bowles. They're like, fire Todd Bowles. The defense isn't good. He's a defensive coach. He doesn't care about offense. But to me, I think he does. If he has a personnel, you just have to trust the process, and that's how people have to handle Bowles. And so far, so good.
Well, people tend to have a short memory, and do any other defensive-minded coaches come to mind who may have had some success with the Buccaneers in years past?
I don't know. Maybe John Gruden or Tony Dungy.
Tony Dungy. Tony Dungy was criticized for being more of a defensive coach.
Yep.
And he took them right there, and then Gruden got them all the way. But I don't think too many people would argue that was Dungy's team that won that Super Bowl, even though it was Gruden who was calling the shots. It was Dungy who put that team together.
Yeah, it was Dungy's without a doubt. I've had several debates with people. Super Bowl 37 back in 2002. I was only 4 at the time, by the way. No, actually, no, I wasn't even 4 yet. That was February of 2002, so I was still 3. Nonetheless, whenever I started getting into football, Julie and TJ played that. They have a DVD. They had a DVD of it. They bought it, and they had the game on. And I remember they played it for me on numerous occasions, and I watched it several times. And it was great. But people, after I've watched the Super Bowl, I was like, oh yeah, that's Tony Dungy's team, and they were like, well, John Gruden was the coach. Yeah. But Dungy did the groundwork to form that team.
Exactly.
And that's how you have to look at it. So. Yeah.
There's talk about Gruden being allowed back into the NFL as maybe not head coach right away, but maybe back into the NFL. You have any thoughts on that?
Well, I've heard some, non-flattering things about Gruden in the past. Mm-hmm. My friend and the late great Steve Dumig used to host a show on WDAE in Tampa, a major sports station, and he would say on the air, Gruden would be one way 1 minute and one way the next. So 2 weeks, he would say, oh, yeah, he's my guy. I'm going to start him. 2 weeks later, no, I think we're going to move on from that guy. I think I want to bench him. He's not doing well. So with that rubs me the wrong way, number one. Number two, I think he needs to watch his mouth and watch his demeanor from time to time, and he hasn't done that. So I have some reservations about him coming back into the NFL. He's not my favorite guy in the world, to be honest. I hate to talk bad about people, sure. But he's not. I'm just being totally transparent, but we'll see what happens. I mean, hopefully he's turned himself around, and hopefully he's had a chance to kind of look in the mirror and reevaluate himself, but I really don't know.
Speaking of head coaches, has anyone, or has TJ or Julie or anyone ever played you any clips of John McKay?
No.
Some of his posts. Do me a favor and look up some of his interviews.
Okay.
He was like the king. He's like the Yogi Berra of pro football when it comes to quotes, fun quotes, interesting quotes, and quotable quotes.
Oh yeah.
Take a look at him when you get a chance.
Oh, I will. I'm excited.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.
I'm excited.
What about so football is your number one, and safe to say NFL over college, or are you just as passionate about college football as you are with NFL?
I would say I'm passionate about both. However, I am a little upset in college football these days. There's not the loyalty isn't there anymore, especially with the transfer portal. You get people going from different school to different school, and then you get the NIL and all that stuff. And all that stuff is, it's fine. And, hey, that's today's football. But I remember college football being, you play for the school, you play for the passion, you play because you love the game. But it hasn't turned into that as of these days. So I would say I am passionate about both, but maybe the NFL has a slight edge.
So the transfer portal.
Yep.
What a mess. What a cluster that is.
Yep, because you can have people enter the transfer portal before, bowl games, and they don't play, and it's really a different team a lot of times when they play in the bowl games. Like, for instance, my mom and her significant other got me tickets to the FSU Georgia game back in 2023, last year, 2023, the Orange Bowl down in Miami. FSU was snubbed from being in the playoffs, which I'm still upset about, by the way, the college football playoff. Kirk Herbstreit decided to put Alabama in there, and even with Jordan Travis hurt, they had a backup quarterback lead them to a win in the ACC championship game, but yet they still pick Alabama over LSU.
Imagine that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they won him on TV.
Yeah, that's right.
But that was Nick Saban's final year at Alabama because he ended up retiring. He wasn't there last year. So, nonetheless, I digress. So the transfer portal, I didn't really see many of FSU's starters because they had already transferred or they had declared that they were going to sit out for the NFL draft. And I understand that the bowl games don't necessarily mean anything as far as records or playoffs are concerned, but they mean a lot to the school. That's your last hurrah with the school.
Correct.
Play with your teammates, especially if you're a senior. Play with your teammates. This is the last time you guys are going to be on the same field playing together, at one time, especially on the college level. play for your teammates. I understand, not risking, an injury and things like that. But also the other side of the coin is in the NFL, you could get drafted first play of the season, you could get hurt and you could be done for the year.
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers. You got that right. Fourth play of the 2023 season.
I watched that happen when it happened.
You did?
Yes, I did. I was at Landon's Pub up in Watkins Glen, New York when that went down and he went down.
Are there a lot of Jet fans up in that area?
Yeah, Buffalo.
Oh, okay. Oh, Buffalo Bills.
They're more Buffalo Bills fans.
Okay.
You get a smattering of Jets fans and you get some Giants fans, but Buffalo Bills, they seem to be the team of choice for that particular area.
Yeah.
But they're in Western New York too, so they're a lot closer to Buffalo than they are to the city. So
yeah, but that was rough. And now, of course, he really hasn't done much this year either. To be honest, he's had a few games, but hey, it's the Jets. The Jets, firing their coach in the middle of the season. I've talked to many Jet fans, and they said, well, they should have fired him, Robert Saleh, that is, before the season started. And people are like, well, we want to give him at least one more shot. But, when you fire a coach mid-season, that really, kind of puts the rest of your season at risk because you don't know what's going to happen. You're trying to scramble mid-season to play the rest of the games because, as they say, they're not going to cancel the rest of the games. You got to play them.
That's right.
And so even if you have a coach, if you have an interim coach, it doesn't matter. Your team has to show up and they have to give it their all. They don't necessarily have to, but it's recommended. But that's what the Jets did this year, and they're going to have one of the top picks in the draft because of it.
That's right. Well, there is that. Now, if Aaron Rodgers wants to resurrect his career, if he wants to, get a shot at some titles, there's one way he can do that. I hope he doesn't, by the way, but it's by joining the Bucs because the Bucs tend to make champions out of some of these guys.
I don't know if I want Aaron Rodgers.
I don't want him. No, nothing against the guy. I'm sure he's a very nice guy. I like him on a number of levels, but I don't particularly care for. I guess maybe it's the air of arrogance that he has about him.
Yeah. He helped get Mike McCarthy fired in Green Bay.
Yes, exactly.
He wants to run, everything. And don't get me wrong, Aaron Rodgers has had success. He's won several Super Bowls with the Packers, but I think it's time for him to hang it up. And he's fragile too. That's the only thing. He's fragile as he's gotten older. He's become fragile, and thus it's easier for him to get hurt and and miss time. Unfortunately, that's what happens. But I personally don't want Rodgers on my team. I think he's turned a little south, if you want my honest opinion. But here we are.
I can't disagree with you at all on that. Shifting over to baseball, you've been a Rays fan.
Oh yeah,
from day one. What are your thoughts on the Rays? What's their future look like?
Well, that's the $1 million question because Hurricane Milton really kind of tore their future, I wouldn't say apart, but really put it in question because in July of this past year, 2024, both the St. Pete City Council and Pinellas County Commission gave the Rays a green light to go ahead and build a new stadium close to the Tropicana Field site in St. Petersburg. Now we're talking governmental issues because the Rays have wanted a new stadium that is, for quite some time.
Yes.
It's been they've been talking about that since 2007, 2008. The Trop has been there since 1998, since their inception. Mm-hmm. So the Rays, they gave them they approved it. It looked like it was going to be great. And then come October, they were supposed to issue some bonds to finance the stadium. The Pinellas County Commission was. Well, that was delayed because of the hurricane. The meeting just took place less than a week after Hurricane Milton came through the Tampa Bay area and tore the roof off Tropicana Field. So that was October 16th, 17th, whenever it was. And they said, well, let's hold off on that for a little while and let's, wait. I get that. I totally get that. At that particular juncture of time, I get the delay. Now in November, they voted on it again, and they voted on it right when two new commissioners were sworn in that were against the whole stadium deal to begin with. So there were yes votes voted out and no votes voted in. So that was a concern. It was like, oh man, do they really want the stadium? Are the Rays going to get what they had, what they were essentially looking for back in July? So long story short, in December, the county commission and the St. Pete City Council both approved bonds that will help finance the stadium. I think the whole project is going to be like $312 billion or something like that with a B, which is insane. That's a new stadium, but hey, that's what they're looking for. But now the Rays aren't necessarily happy with that result, even though the county commission approved it, which is what they wanted. The argument from the team is they took too much time to do that. And if they take too much time, the more it costs the Rays, because the Rays are responsible for the cost overruns of the stadium. So that's a little bit of a concern. So March 31st is going to be the next big date when the Rays have to, if there's no shovel in the ground by the 31st of March, of this year, then that's a concern. They have a temporary home at Steinbrenner Field this year. They're playing in an outdoor stadium, which is unique for Florida because we got rain delays, and they're going to have to front load their home games for the most part because once you get into June and July, that's rainy season. You get afternoon storms every day. At all times of the day. They usually start around 3 or 4, but sometimes you get them, 12, 1 o'clock. You better hope the drainage of that stadium, of that field, is good if you're going to play a 7 o'clock game out there. Sometimes it's still thunder and lightning at that moment in time. So, long story short, I don't know I know where the Rays are going to play in 2025, but 2026, I don't know where they're going to be. I don't know if they're going to be in the Tampa Bay area, and that would be sad because I'm a diehard Rays fan, always have been. I know people with the Rays organization, thanks to me, working in radio, and my mentor, Enrique, is the Spanish color commentator for the Rays. So I really hope that they stay in the area because, people like to go out and watch baseball, and personally, I enjoyed the Trop. I thought the Trop was a nice stadium. Was it a little out of date? Sure. But did you have rain delays? No, because it was a dome stadium. It was 72 degrees inside. It didn't matter how hot it was outside. You were still sitting in comfortable air conditioning, watching, America's pastime. And unfortunately, thanks to the Mother Nature, we have no control over Mother Nature, we don't have that right now.
No, we don't. It'll be interesting to see where they end up. Who are the front runners right now if it does turn that way?
Well, I've heard Nashville. I've heard the Carolinas. Definitely a city who doesn't have a baseball team. I've heard the Nashville Rays. I've even heard the Montreal. They're looking at the Montreal X-Rays. That's
the X-Rays.
That's what they're calling. Yeah.
Listen, if there's a humor vote, that one gets the cake. The X-Rays.
X-Rays.
Yeah, none of those teams are on the water. None of them have actual rays. So it's kind of like when the Jazz went out to Utah. It didn't make much sense with the name.
Mm-hmm.
So do they get stuck with the name, or are they allowed to rename or rebrand?
That's a good question. I think they could rebrand if they wanted to. I guess it all depends on what the owner wants to do. If principal owner Stu Sternberg wants to sell the team and get out of this deal that he's in with the county commission, I guess whoever buys it, I guess they have control. But, I mean, the Rays are a name that I love. I would feel weird calling them anything but the Rays.
Well, they wouldn't be the Rays anymore at that point, for sure. Yeah. Would they still be your team, or would you be looking at one of the other Florida teams? I guess there is only Miami at this point.
Well, Miami's too dreadful. They have been for a long time. The Marlins have been too dreadful. So I don't know who. Gosh, I guess I would root for the Braves.
Okay.
If the Rays did that, or I don't. That would be something I'd have to reflect on. I really, really would.
Could you imagine going back in time and meeting up with Joe DiMaggio or Babe Ruth or Willie Mays or any of those guys and trying to explain to them what baseball and pro sports in general has become? The salaries, you said $312 billion for a stadium. Could you imagine those guys wrapping their heads around playing in a stadium that cost that kind of money?
No, I couldn't. I could not imagine that. I would love to be, I'd love to be a fly on the wall whenever they were talking about salaries and stuff back in their day and compare it to now, saying, here's what we have. Here's the new stadium. Here's what's happening, and even the play on the field too. I would like, to talk to them, because in some situations while watching a baseball game, I've been upset with the lack of hustle for some teams. Like, for example, if you hit a ground ball, just a little ground ball, you just barely touch it with the bat. People don't usually run. They're like, oh, I'm going to be out. No, in my opinion, you have to run to the base no matter what, because you never know. The infielder could drop it.
Yes.
They could have an errant throw. They could throw the ball down the right field line instead of throwing it to first, and then, you could score a run. So the lack of hustle bothers me. And then just, the demeanor of players on the field from time to time when, they don't get the right call from the umpire. And I get it. Managers like to, yell at the umpires. That happens in all sports. The referees get, they take the blame whenever things don't necessarily go well. But when it comes to that, I think you just have to really sit back and reflect and say, okay, that those bad calls happen from time to time. You just have to move forward. Don't dwell on it. And, we have a game to win. We have to put our emotions aside sometimes and really take one for the team, as opposed to, getting ejected and hurting your team more in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. So I'm going to throw a curveball at you.
Okay, I'll see if I can hit it.
You get a free pass, okay?
Yep.
You get to go anywhere, anytime in history, but it has to be a sporting situation or a music situation. So, for instance, you can go to any football, basketball, baseball game. You can go to the development of one of the sports. You can go to the first to when the Beatles first played at the church feet. So you can be anywhere you want to at any given time in history. Music or sports? Where do you go?
Boy, oh boy. You got me. I've always said that I wanted to visit Wrigley Field. There are several ballparks that I've never had the chance to visit yet. One would be Wrigley Field. The other would be Fenway Park. But I think my love of music kind of takes over in this situation, because I've always been an avid Beatles fan. I've always been impressed with how they wrote their songs. I've always been impressed since I'm a drummer. I've always loved Ringo's style of drumming, even though it's simple, but it's really good. It's impeccable.
Yes.
He was able to, and he still is today. He's still, alive and well, even to this day. He's not performing as much, but still he's out there. I would say I would have loved to have been there. And if I could, I would go back to watch the Beatles play on the Ed Sullivan Show. I would have loved to have been there. Watch them play songs like I Want to Hold Your Hand and She Loves You. And that would have been a surreal moment to be a part of.
Yeah. If I had to pick a Beatle moment, it would either be that or it would be the Wooten Village Feet, where they played for the first time together.
Yeah.
As the Quarrymen, or maybe Shea Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe Shea, and that's really, really tough. Because if you got them when they played the first time together, obviously you wouldn't see, what they had developed into.
Right.
If you caught them at Shea Stadium, you would get the hype of the event, but you wouldn't really get to hear them, because all you would hear was the screaming girls.
Yeah.
They had no production value back then whatsoever. So it would just be a cacophony of screaming. But could you imagine the intensity of that moment, knowing what that moment would mean in history? Same with the Ed Sullivan Show. I don't think anybody watching the Ed Sullivan Show knew in February of 1964 what the Beatles would become worldwide.
Sensation. Yeah, I mean, it really would. I would have loved to have been there. I would have given anything to sit in that seat in the audience and just to hear Ed Sullivan say, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles," and just everybody starts screaming, and then bursting into "I Want to Hold Your Hand," or bursting into, just some of their well-known songs.
Sure.
So, yeah, I would say the Beatles would take the cake. Even as much as I love baseball and I love sports in general, I love football, I would have loved to have been at the first Super Bowl. That would have been neat. If I could have picked multiple places, I would have been, the first Super Bowl. That's a monumental thing back in the 60s. Super Bowl I. We're getting close to Super Bowl 60. I mean,
right.
we're getting close. It's not this year, but next year we'll have the 60th Super Bowl in the NFL. So, that would have been fun. I would have loved to have seen when the Cubs won the World Series for the first time in over 100 years back in 2016. That would have been nice to be a part of. Whenever they beat the Dodgers, I think is who they, or no, the Cubs. I can't remember who they beat back in 2016, but that was fun. That would have been awesome.
I was going to ask this question, but I already know the answer. Top NFL team is the Bucks.
Buccaneers.
Top MLB is the Rays. Top NBA is going to be the Magic. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that even? Do you even follow hockey at all? Is that even a thing for you?
I do. I follow the Lightning. They got a huge win. We're taping this on January 8th. So the Lightning got a huge win on the 7th last night. They beat the Hurricanes 3-2 in dramatic fashion. It's been fun. The Lightning are they've dealt with some injuries. It's definitely a different team without Steven Stamkos, their captain there. And that was a tough one anyway because their captain, Stamkos, has played a vital role with this team. But their general manager didn't want to renew his contract and, quite frankly, wanted him out. And he kind of sort of kicked him out of Tampa Bay, and it was a little bit rude. And the Lightning, still probably Lightning fans still hold a grudge with the general manager for making the decision that he did. But Stamkos is such a class act. He said, "Look, it's hockey. We're playing for the Predators. I'm the type. If a player gets traded, that a player who's been there for a long time gets traded, I will still root for their success." No matter what, because of what they did whenever they were in a specific city. Like when Evan Longoria got traded, or when Evan Longoria got picked up by the San Francisco Giants, and he came back to Tropicana Field to play for the Rays. Some people booed him because they were like, but Evan Longoria was involved. The Rays have a rich history, and he was involved in it. He hit the game-winning home run in the bottom of the 12th inning to send the Rays to the 2011 wild card. I mean, game 162. I remember exactly where I was. I was in the dorm at the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind. My dorm staff really did not want people to stay up past a certain time, but she knew that I was really, that I really loved the Rays. So she knocked on the door. The Rays were down 7-0 at one point. So I was like, well, I'll just go to bed. It was a good season. I had already kind of said, it was over. She knocks on the door. I hear a knock and she goes, "Trent, the Rays are only down 7-6. I'm like, "Can I please come watch it? I will do anything and everything. I'll do extra chores." And she said, "Absolutely, come on out." So I did, and it was a little after the stroke of midnight. But when Dan Johnson hit the home run to tie that game, and then Evan Longoria hit the walk-off homer in the bottom of the 12th, it was just a surreal moment, and for that I already had a lot of respect for Longoria beforehand. I definitely did then, and I always will. He's no longer playing in Major League Baseball, but to my what I was saying was, just to kind of sum that up, was I'll always root for somebody, even if they get traded, and that's the case with Stamkos. I wish nothing but the best for him. He's helped the Lightning win several Stanley Cup championships, and I'll always have the respect. He has my undying gratitude.
Very, very cool. Something happened this past summer that was interesting, and it drew a lot of comparisons to Bird and Magic, kind of resurrecting the NBA. And you had Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese in the WNBA. And there were some comparisons about maybe them putting the WNBA on the map a little bit more. Do you think that Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese are enough to do it?
I was into it. I was not into the WNBA really prior to them, but as soon as I started reading her story and I started kind of, just watching games, the games were just on regular TV, and I was scrolling around and I was like, all right, let me listen to this. And sure enough, boy, oh boy, what a surreal story Caitlin Clark is.
She is something.
She's something. I have nothing but the utmost respect for her. And I don't know. I think they could. I really do. I think with Caitlin Clark doing what she has done in college, and doing what she's doing with the Fever now, I think a lot of people have gravitated toward the WNBA just because of her story. And as long as she continues to play, and as long as she continues to, do what she can to help the team succeed, I don't think people are going anywhere.
I think that's pretty cool. I think that at WNBA is obviously it's an idea whose time has come, but so far the talent hasn't kept up with the hype of what it needs to be.
Right.
I'm not comparing apples to apples. I'm comparing kind of apples to oranges. You can't expect women to play. And I'm going to get in trouble for this. You can't expect them to play at the level of men in the NBA, but you do want the ratio to be the same. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You want it to be comparable among women.
Yep.
And do you think that they've reached that level yet in the WNBA, or do you think that there's still a little bit more development to go before they can reach that level?
I would say I think there's a touch more development that needs to happen. I think they will get there. It just takes time, and we're in the early stages of that taking place.
I think you're right. Back to music. We were talking about the Beatles, and I hate it when people ask me this. I do, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you have a favorite Beatle? And if so, if you do, then who and why?
That's a tough one because they're all unique in their own way.
Yeah.
They're all their own people. They're their own musicians. I would say McCartney is probably my favorite, even though, and then followed by Ringo Starr. McCartney, Julie and TJ, I talk about them a lot. They're my grandparents. They've had a really positive influence on me over the years, and they always will. They took me to go see Paul McCartney back in 2022 when he was playing in Orlando. And I didn't have a favorite Beatle prior to going to that concert, but after that, I decided that he was my favorite just because of, his laid back, and that was, this is late in his career. This is really late. This wasn't, he's not in his prime, anymore. He's kind of getting toward the end, but still, he still had what it took. I mean, the vocals at times were a little shaky, and who could blame him? You really can't. But I would say his personality and just his enthusiasm on stage, his lyrics, the lyrics of his songs really make you think. I really like it. I mean, look at the song, Eleanor Rigby. It really makes you think. I mean, it goes in, Father Mackenzie, wiping his hands as he, walks from the grave. I mean, it's like, wow, it really paints a picture of what is happening here, and talking about the lonely people. And so the lyrics that he has written, the lyrics that whole band has written in their songs, is just, they're like none other. And McCartney's personality and just the way he embraced his singing and his musicianship, I would say he's my favorite.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. So I asked this of my kids and my sons particularly when we've been to sports events. We've been to Magic games before. We've been to some Rays games. We've been to different events, and I'll lean over to one of them, either Harrison or Rodney, and I'll say, a guy comes up to the bleachers here, and he says, "Come downstairs. We're going to put a uniform on you, and you're going out on the field or the court, whatever it may be, and you're gonna play 2 minutes with this team. Would you do it?" And I'm always looking for their response. So let me ask you this: you're at a Paul McCartney concert.
Yeah.
Somebody comes up to the bleachers and says, "Trent, come down. You're going on the drums for one song." Do you do it?
See, I would be nervous because I would be afraid I'd be so nervous, and it'd be such a surreal moment that I'd mess it up. I'd forget what I'm doing. Yeah, I wouldn't forget how to play drums, but I'd be like, okay, I'm going to mess this up. I'd be overthinking it the entire song, no matter if it was Can't Buy Me Love, no matter if it was Hey Jude, even if it was one of his new Paul McCartney songs that he played at the concert back in Orlando in 2022. But ultimately, after I thought about it for a second, I definitely would do it.
Good man.
And the reason I would is because you never get that opportunity. I would be stupid to say no. If I said no, I would be kicking myself for the rest of my life going, "Dag nabbit, Trent, you had the opportunity to play with a legend. Why didn't you do it?" All because you were afraid you were going to mess it up. If you mess it up, who cares? You can still say you played with a legend.
That's right.
So I'll do it. Yeah.
You know what? That right there is the very attitude that you have had ever since you have been able to stand behind a microphone. And from the time you were little, you would come up and sit in with California Toe Jam, and you would sit in and play with us. From the time that you could hold sticks and actually hold down a rhythm, which was very young. You started off on the bongos.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
And then the conga. And you would do that at Bible Fellowship. And there were several years where we did Little Drummer Boy, and you were like the star. And that place would erupt after the song. They just loved you. And then when you got to actually play the drums, it was remarkable. It was so cool to watch you learning and growing and developing those skills over the years. But one of the things I liked was that I always liked to take you out from behind the drums and have you come and say a few words to the audience.
Yep.
And I loved what you did because of your encouragement.
Well, I'm grateful that you gave me those opportunities because, hey, if you don't know, I'm sure people listening probably know this, but if you don't know, I've been blind since birth. I do not let it stop me, never have, never will. And I think of blindness as the way of life. Not all visually impaired people think that way. In fact, some of them they feel sorry for themselves. They're like, oh, I can't do anything. I can't see. I have to rely on people to, come pick me up and take me places, and nobody's going to hire me, and this, and this. It's like, woe is me, cry me a river kind of thing. But I'm not like that because I learned at a very young age that I can't be like that. And I learned that from many people. My friend Enrique Alou is one of them, the color commentator for the Tampa Bay Rays. Also, from my vision teacher, Lois Sanders, who is known around the Sebring area, Highlands County, just a terrific individual. I mean, she said, whenever she first started working with me at 3 years old, she said, you better not say I can't. If I hear you say I can't, we're going to have a big problem. And I said, okay, I won't. And she said, because you can do it, and I'm going to push you to do it. Was it easy? No. Did we have disagreements from time to time? Of course we did. I was a young kid. I thought I knew stuff, but I didn't right away. I think we all think that from time to time. But it's people like her, and it's people like, my grandparents and my mom and my just other family members who have, said you can do anything you put your mind to. And they've put me in environments where I can do things that I want to. They've given me the opportunity to do this. And for that, I'm grateful. And I get my, TJ gives me ideas of things to say to help encourage people. And he's right on the money when he says it. He said, you just have to not take life for granted and, do all that you can while you have the time on earth. And that's my motto. That's my philosophy. If there's an opportunity that comes, I'm going to do it.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. Speaking of opportunities that come and go, you had an opportunity that came and is about to go, and you got to spend how many years over at USF?
I spent a couple of years at USF, so 2023. Well, I started in the spring of 23. I wasn't able to obtain housing for my very first semester, so I had to take a class or two online. But I was able to, secure housing for the fall semester, in spring and summer and vice versa. So I'm in my penultimate semester.
You're what?
Penultimate, so my second to last semester at USF. So penultimate. So the spring term is already kind of commenced. So I'll be starting that, and then in the summer I take a couple of more classes, and then I'll graduate with my BA in mass communications in August. And I couldn't go to USF if it weren't for an organization called Division of Blind Services, because what they do is they help with tuition. I was just telling somebody the other day, if I had to pay out of pocket for my entire USF bill, whether it's tuition and fees, my meal plan, my housing, it would cost me $10,000 a semester.
Oh, yeah.
Now, needless to say, my savings would be gone after my third or fourth semester, and then I would need to, borrow loans. But thanks to Division of Blind Services, they pay my tuition and fee, they pay my tuition in full, and my room and board at 70%. So all I have to pay each semester is 30% of the rent for each specific term. So I am forever grateful for that. Their requirements, obviously you have to maintain a certain GPA for them to do that, and, have to be in an environment where you can succeed. But I give credit where it's due, and it's to them, because if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be saying these words right now.
Fantastic. I appreciate that. College experience, some highs and lows.
There are definitely a lot of highs. The highs are, meeting new people and meeting people within your major. I love talking to people in my classes if they're willing to speak.
If they're willing to speak.
Well, at a college campus these days, you might be sad to know that a lot of people are, when they're walking around, they're either, face down in their phones or they got stuff on their mind when they won't talk. Sometimes they won't communicate, and that's their prerogative. But I'm there to meet people I haven't met before and build connections, and who knows what's going to happen. So with that, it's really, really neat. I enjoy, communicating with them. I enjoy meeting the professors. I've been given opportunities, going to sporting events for basically nothing is nice. I can walk around campus and go to basketball games and, football and all that. My highs personally have been professors have been willing to accommodate my needs and help me more than they are required to by student accessibility services. But because they want me to succeed, they go above and beyond. And for that, I'm forever grateful. One I can mention in particular is a guy named Wayne Garcia. I had him my very first semester at USF. He said, if you need something, let me know. He sent me all the PowerPoints before each class, so I was able to peruse them with a sighted person, so I knew what we would be talking about each class, so I wouldn't be lost. When an image came up, I'd be like, oh yeah, I know where we're at now. My assistant described this to me, and vice versa. All my other professors at USF have been the same way. Another guy that I can think of is Ryan Watson. Last semester I took an electronic field production class. Well, actually, no, it was 2 semesters ago. That required a lot of visual work, a lot of camera work. The class was required to go out and shoot different things. We had to shoot a chase scene. We had to shoot a documentary with dialogue and a full-on, documentary you would see on one of the movie channels on TV or Netflix or what have you. But Ryan Watson knew that I wanted to be there, and he said, there are opportunities for you to do audio stuff. Why don't you just do that? And I said, Ryan, I don't want to divert too much from your curriculum, man. Like you built this curriculum, the program wants me to do different things. He said, I got you. Just trust the process. And I said, okay. So he had me do an auditory chase scene with dialogue, which I still have. He had me do like a 15-minute documentary. Well, it only had to be a minimum of 5 minutes. You could go as long as you needed. I did a documentary on the steps that blind people can take to succeed in college. And it was like a whole, I interviewed about 7 people for that. It was really neat. And so it's people like that. Those have been some of my highest moments. And this semester, I'm taking a promotional video class with him.
Wow.
Same instructor. And he said there are opportunities for you to show your audio skills in this class too. So it's people like Ryan Watson, Wayne Garcia, Steve Malavey, Gregory Perot, all my other professors that I've had at USF. They've been fantastic. The lows, I would say, going back to people not speaking, I would say that's what it is. I've had, you meet different people in the world, and unfortunately there are going to be some not so nice people out there. I'll walk around and I'll start talking to people, and I asked somebody, hey, how you doing? And one guy just said flat out no, like he never answered my question. I said, hey, how are you? He just happened to be walking by. He said, no, I'm not helping you. And I said, I don't need help. I was just saying, hey, how are you? Trying to be nice, trying to strike up a conversation. In another instance, I was in the dining hall and I needed help getting to the door, because it was a maze. There were a bunch of tables around me. There were some walls that I couldn't get around. And one guy said, I'm sorry, I don't want to help you. I don't want to be I don't want the liability. And I'm
My word.
What do you mean by that? And I'm like, all I'm asking is just, I don't need you to take me to the door. I just want you to point me in the direction and I can walk it from there without a problem. He didn't understand that and he didn't take the time. So that can be a little disheartening and a little discouraging at times, but I have to remember that, people are dealing with their own stuff too, but there's no excuse to be rude, in my opinion.
I agree 100%. There's absolutely not. And we're living in a time now where kindness, it's more important to be kind now than it's ever been at any time in history. Kindness seems to be sorely lacking, as do simple manners and politeness and friendliness.
Yep. Yeah, it really is. And, that's how I was raised, though. I was raised to say good morning or hi or good afternoon. Or, I was raised to greet people when they walk past me. That's how my parents and grandparents and everybody, they said, that's what you're supposed to do, whether they talk back to you or not. So I'm doing what I was taught was right. But apparently to some people, they don't think they didn't grow up the same way.
It's their loss.
Yeah.
It certainly is. So you mentioned that you're going to be wrapping up your college career in August. What's next for Trent Ferguson?
Well, I'm looking at some potential job opportunities. I'm putting feelers out there, trying to get as many internships as I can. I'm trying to land an internship before my summer semester, and that's unique because I've worked in radio for 5 years. I'm doing things in reverse order, so to speak, but that's how it kind of happened. I mean, that's just how it just landed. So I have had the experience of working at a radio station up in Palm Coast and working in Sebring and those markets and doing some PSAs that have aired across the state. And while that stuff has been great, I ultimately want to land in the Tampa Bay area. Tampa's definitely more accessible than a small town like Sebring. I love Sebring, and don't get me wrong, but as far as accessibility for someone who is blind, Tampa definitely takes the cake. You got a bus system, you got Uber, Lyft, you can get from point A to point B in a relatively timely manner. So the Tampa radio market's good. Got a lot of great stations over there. I hope to land in one of those, but I will do anything in media. This mass communications degree has opened me to up to doing other things. Like if there was a job opening at the newspaper as a sports columnist, I would do that because I've taken newspaper writing courses. If there's a script writing position at, let's say, WFLA News Channel 8 TV station, I would do that. I've just learned to keep an open mind and to not say no as fast as possible, because you never know what an opportunity will lead to. When one door closes, another one opens. And you gotta walk through the open door while you can.
You got to walk through the open door while you can.
Yep.
That is really good advice.
Yep. I mean, that came to me. I didn't practice that or anything. While we were talking, that was authentic conversation. You just have to walk through it while you can and kick it down, bust down the door, and see where it leads.
You know what? I think that is a tidy way to wrap this little thing up.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, that was poignant. Well done.
I appreciate that. I try to, keep my radio skills up to par.
Fantastic. Trent, look it, man. I love you. You've been an inspiration to me my whole life. I just think the world of you, and I want the best for you, and I just want you to keep going, wherever it leads. I'm excited for you.
I appreciate that. No, I really appreciate the kind words, but it all really started with you, and I'm being completely honest. I mean, you took me under your wing. You didn't have to, but you said you took me under your wing. You said I'm gonna invest in this kid, this visually impaired kid who wants to learn how to play drums, and you give me opportunities to play. I mean, I've played with the band. I've played in front of 1,000 people in places like Port Charlotte and other places and at the Hammock and other things. It wouldn't have been possible without you, and without you trusting me to be able to be the anchor. The drummer is not an easy thing to be with a band. You got to keep the tempo. I was sort of like the quarterback there for a while.
That's right.
I had to, if something went wrong, the whole team is down. So I want to thank you, and this was a great opportunity. And just to all your listeners, all I can say is just be kind to each other. Don't take anything for granted. Tell those you love them, because you honestly don't know when the last time you get to say that will be. And don't sweat the small stuff, because everything's the small stuff.
That's right. Trent, I love you.
Hey, I love you, man. Thank you again.
Yep. Later. And we're out.
That was cool. That's good stuff.
The Havery Show has been brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.